Hi, I'm Chelsea and I'm the Geeky Ballerina. Today we're going to talk about ballet curriculum for 5-year-olds, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, and how to make it a piece of cake. Don't worry, I brought cake. This particular cake is a great metaphor for these 5, 6, and 7-year-olds because you know what? It is from a bundt pan and it did not come out of the pan particularly great. This is not the prettiest piece of cake I've ever made in my life, but it tastes good, right? That's what we're going for in these 5, 6, and 7-year-old classes. Are the ingredients important? Sure. Do we want to bake the cake all the way? Yeah, we definitely want to do that. Bake your cake all the way, have a good recipe, all of those things, but it's not going to look good yet, and that's okay. I think we all have slightly unrealistic expectations because we see these videos on social media of these really young dancers who are really amazing, and we start to think that that's average and that our students are behind and that we need to push them harder. That's not average. You know what's average? Having to tell a kid to please stop licking the mirror. Or having a kid who's like, my leotard is too small, and you're like, could you put your clothes back on, please? I'd love that. These things are normal. And really, being phenomenal when you're little tiny doesn't mean you're gonna be phenomenal as an adult. It doesn't mean you're gonna love ballet. It just means you're phenomenal as a kid. But we can have these adorable little 5, 6, and 7-year-olds who are not up on stage doing Flames of Paris. We want a cake that tastes good and wasn't stressful to make. Okay, let's get into it. How do we make the cake that is ballet for 5, 6, and 7-year-olds? I call it ballet foundations because it's not pre-ballet and it's not elementary. These little kids, 5, 6, 7 years old, they think in really specific and really magical ways, and it doesn't matter how smart they are. I had a student, she was 6, and she came in one day and she's like, Miss Chelsea, I don't understand why people think division is hard. Division is just multiplication backwards, and multiplication is just fancy addition. And she was right, but I'd never thought of it that way. But she was still only 6, and so being a fairy or pretending to dance like a lion, all of these things were still things that really appealed to her. That magical thinking is still there, but also 6 is about when their cause and effect skills kind of jump up to another level. So we have this really magical window. They're not pre-ballet, they're not one hand at the bar ballet, they're not even 2 hands facing the bar usually. We need games, but we also need to up their structure. In these ballet foundations classes, the goal is joy. Do I care what the cake looks like? Do I care what the cake tastes like? Yes. It's about joy in movement. We have the rest of their lives to figure out how to get that darn bundt cake out of the pan. I promise I grease and flour it. I cannot figure it out. That's okay. No one's good at everything. Knowing that our goal is joy. Next, we look at the ingredients that are in our cake and how do we want to introduce them in a fun and playful way. This cake uses sour cream. When I'm eating it, am I thinking, wow, this is a good way to get some calcium in. This has vitamin A and vitamin B2. No, I'm not thinking about any of that. Or there are sesame seeds in there. Am I eating the sesame seeds thinking, hey, there's some more calcium in this. There's magnesium in this. There's iron in this. I'm not thinking about any of that because the cake is so much fun. That's what we want for these ballet foundations classes. So knowing that we want to start building core strength or we're continuing building core strength, but we actually are getting a little bit more challenging with it. 5-year-olds aren't going to do planks for you very often or very long or very well. They get bored. What can we do instead? If you want to do planks, tell a story with it. Have a whole series of actions and then the plank is the bridge and oh no, the princess had to slow down because the troll stubbed his toe, and make them hold it a little bit longer. Or I like to have kids hug their knees in like a snowball and then we open up and their legs go out into a V-sit and we are snowflakes. Snowballs on snowflakes and snowballs on snowflakes. And then we're done, we melt to the ground in slow motion. And then that transitions really well into rolling over onto your stomach and flying like a superhero. It's a game. It's a game, and we're getting stronger. There's center bar vocabulary, because again, I don't use the bar for the 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, but they do bar work. We're learning the vocabulary. They are ready to learn the vocabulary. They are ready to learn what it means. They are ready to feel like accomplished, educated dancers. But really the main goal is familiarity with the words. But if you can't remember what they mean, that's not a problem. And then we're working on core strength. Again, that's why I don't put them at the bar. When I have them do things stationary in the center, it challenges their core strength. It challenges their balance. So that practice sets them up really well for when they start their elementary division and we do start using the bar. They have no idea. They have no idea. We are learning our French words. We are adding in beautiful port-de-bras. We are telling more stories. We're gonna melt a marshmallow with our pliés, or we're gonna splash our toes in the puddles with our piqué points, or we reach up really high and get our favorite color markers and we put them between our toes and then we draw a letter D and then we bend over and we wipe it off with our floor, or not with our floor. We bend over and we wipe it off with our hands, and that way we get our ronde-jambs in and we also get a stretch forward in. We tell stories. We have fun. Little kids get tired standing still. Part of that is that they don't have the core strength that adults have. And part of it is just that they get bored pretty easily. And that's okay. The world is a really cool, fun, exciting place. And ballet class is a really cool, fun, exciting place. So keep your center bar exercises and your adagio exercises, anything that is stationary, keep them short and sweet. And maybe don't get to all of your exercises every single class. It's like feeding a toddler. If they need to have a balanced diet in one day, you're sunk. If you look at the course of a week, or for a dance class, the course of a month, did we get it all in? That's how we look at these little kids. Because if we have a big long list, we're gonna be stressed trying to get to everything. And if you are stressed, they are stressed. And stress makes for bad cakes, especially if you're trying to get it out of the pan. You also are welcome to do some stationary standing things and then sit down and do some conditioning things, and then stand up and do some adagio stuff, and then sit down and do some conditioning thing. There's not a rule that says your 5, 6, and 7-year-old classes have to look like your 15, 16, and 17-year-old classes. They shouldn't. They shouldn't. Those two groups are thinking in extremely different ways. So we want to present the material and the challenges in ways that make sense for the brains in the room. And then we get to the Allegro part of class. This should be 30% of your class. And that is gonna stress you out in terms of how do I plan everything, because 30%, if you have a 1-hour class, and that's another thing that this Ballet Foundations level does, they get the 1-hour class. They can focus for a full hour, but 30% is 20 minutes. So if you're trying to do your floor conditioning stuff and your center bar and your adagio work and get it all in, and yeah, you probably should give them a drink break in there at some point, because kids these days like to hydrate. 30% for jumps, that feels like a lot. It is a lot. It is a lot, and it's worth the time, because the movement through space is where the kids are gonna get the most growth. And bonus, they tend to like it the most. But these are the steps where you work on the gross locomotor skills. Really, a lot of what we're doing with these Ballet Foundations kids is giving their bodies opportunities to practice so that the coordination can develop. If you're thinking, I do not have 30% of class, like I don't have that many age-appropriate ballet steps in my brain, that's okay. It doesn't have to be ballet. You can do obstacle courses. I love to pick an animal. Like you could go through and everybody could name their favorite animal, and we could be like, okay, well, the floor, like this portion of the floor is lava. How is an alligator gonna get across the lava? How is a unicorn gonna get across the lava? By the way, if they say unicorn or Pegasus, you need to pay attention, because a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old who is upset with you for not knowing the difference between a unicorn, a Pegasus, and an earth pony is some wrath, and I'm just warning you right now, you need to pay attention. You can tell a story. When was the last time you let your kids help you make up a story? Like if you've got 5 traveling steps that you want to work on that day. Okay, fine. Start upstage left and do your traveling step to the center of the room. What happens here? Are we in a jungle? What do we find in the jungle? And then you act that out, and then you do your next traveling step along the diagonal, and now you're in Antarctica, and what are we going to act out here? And then you go in a circle for your next traveling step, and oh my gosh, this is so cool. We are in Europe. What part of Europe? Do you guys know? What parts of Europe do you guys know? Some kids know a lot of stuff. When students get the chance to contribute to the story, it's a really empowering opportunity for them. It demonstrates to your student that you see their intelligence, you see their creativity, and you value that. It makes them feel very important. And bonus, it means you don't have to think of as much stuff. It's win-win for everybody. The goal is to try new ways of moving and new ways of stopping, because at this age, they also can stop on a specified count. We're exploring new shapes to balance in. Some of it will be academic, formal-ish ballet. Some of it will not. Some of it will not. Have you ever asked kids if they can fondue with their tongue? It's kind of fun. If you're having a day where like they are too tired, do your bar vocabulary with your tongue until they're laughing, and then you can stand up and do it the way you had originally planned on. Because if you're like, no, get up, dancers do hard things, you're not gonna have a fun day. You're not gonna have a fun day. It's like putting too much baking powder in your cake. It doesn't taste good. It leaves a weird taste in your mouth. Start with the fun. I do have a ballet curriculum specifically for 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. It's part of my beginning division, so that would be the pre-ballet A and B, and then the ballet foundations A, B, and C. Those are 2 separate things because your pre-ballet, preschool kids think differently from your kindergarten, 1st, 2nd graders, who think differently from your elementary division, who are your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and up. I have the resource available for you. If you are interested, you can find it on my website, geekyballerina.com. That's also where you can find my blog, and you can sign up for my newsletter. Once a month, I send a newsletter where I talk about a technique tip and an element of artistry, and I try really hard to weave those 2 together. Ballet curriculum for 5-year-olds is such a magical, special thing. The goal is to have fun. The goal is to try new things. We practice our ballet manners at a slightly higher standard. We have a slightly longer class because we're building our focus abilities, but it's still fun. At the end of the day, you're baking a cake. As always, I hope you have a really great